Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Or if you're new here, welcome aboard. Today we're stepping into the world of tuxedos, martinis, and high-stakes espionage. That's right, we're talking about James Bond, 007, the spy who's been charming us, thrilling us, and saving the world for over 6 decades. Whether you're a lifelong fan or just curious about why this guy's still a big deal in 2025, you're in the right place. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for updates. So, what's on the menu today? We're going deep, really deep, into the James Bond franchise. We'll start with where it all began, Ian Fleming's novels and that groundbreaking first film, Dr. No. Then, we'll trace Bond's journey through the years, from Sean Connery's cool confidence to Daniel Craig's gritty intensity. But this isn't just a nostalgia trip. We've got the latest news hot off the press. Amazon MGM Studios has taken the reins of the Bond franchise, and trust me, that's a massive shakeup we need to unpack. Plus, we'll dive into the big questions. Who's the next Bond? How do you modernize a character like this? And why does 007 still matter in a world that's changed so much since 1962? This is going to be a ride, full of action, analysis, and maybe a few shaken, not stirred puns along the way. We'll explore Bond's impact on pop culture, tackle some of the controversies swirling around the franchise, and look ahead to what's next. So, grab a drink, martini optional, and let's get started. Let's kick things off at the beginning. James Bond wasn't born on the silver screen, he started on the page. Back in 1953, a British writer named Ian Fleming introduced the world to 007 in his novel Casino Royale. Fleming wasn't just some random author dreaming up spy stories. He'd been a naval intelligence officer during World War II, so he knew a thing or two about espionage. And Bond? He was this fascinating mix of a cold-blooded operative and a refined gentleman who loved fast cars, fine dining, and, well, flirting with danger. But Bond didn't really explode into the global icon we know today until 1962. That's when producers Albert Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman brought him to life in Dr. No with a relatively unknown Scottish actor named Sean Connery in the lead role. And oh boy, did Connery deliver. That moment when he lights a cigarette and says,
Bond. James Bond.
with that smooth drawl, instant legend status. Dr. No wasn't a massive budget blockbuster. It cost about $1 million, which was peanuts even back then. But it had everything that would define Bond. Exotic locations like Jamaica, a menacing villain in Dr. No himself, a stunning Bond girl with Ursula Andress as Honey Rider, and gadgets that made you wish you were a spy. It was a hit, and just like that, the Bond franchise was off and running. Connery starred in 5 more films after that, from Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, You Only Live Twice, and Diamonds Are Forever. And he set the gold standard. He was suave, tough, and had this effortless charisma that made you believe Bond could charm anyone and punch his way out of anything. But here's the thing. Bond wasn't meant to stay the same forever. And that's where the franchise's evolution really gets interesting. So, Sean Connery steps away after Diamonds Are Forever in 1971. Well, mostly he did come back for Never Say Never Again later. But that's a whole other story. The producers needed a new Bond, and they turned to Roger Moore. Now, Roger's Bond was a big shift. Where Connery was brooding and intense, Moore brought a lighter touch. More wit, more eyebrow raises, and a lot more camp. Moore's era, starting with Live and Let Die in 1973 and running all the way to A View to a Kill in 1985, leaned hard into the fun. We got wild stunts, like Bond skiing off a cliff in The Spy Who Loved Me, and outrageous plots, like battling a space laser in Moonraker. Some fans loved it. Others thought it was too silly. But Moore did 7 films, more than anyone else, so he clearly connected with audiences. Then came Timothy Dalton in the late 80s. Dalton only did 2 films, The Living Daylights and License to Kill, but he brought a darker, more serious Bond. This was a guy who felt closer to Fleming's original vision, a blunt instrument, a killer with a license, not just a playboy. It was a bold move, but the timing wasn't quite right. Audiences were still into the flashy 80s vibe. And Dalton's grit didn't fully land. Fast forward to 1995 and enter Pierce Brosnan with Goldeneye. Brosnan was like the perfect mix. He had Connery's charm, a bit of Moore's humor, and just enough edge to feel fresh. GoldenEye was a massive hit, especially with that epic tank chase, and it brought Bond into the post-Cold War era. He did 4 films total, ending with Die Another Day in 2002, which, well, let's just say the invisible car and Madonna cameo didn't age perfectly. And then, in 2006, we got Daniel Craig with Casino Royale.
Craig's Bond was a total reboot, raw, physical, emotional. He wasn't just a smooth talker. He was a man haunted by his past, bleeding and breaking as much as he was winning. From Casino Royale to No Time to Die in 2021, Craig's 5 films redefined Bond for the 21st century. And that final scene in No Time to Die, Bond sacrificing himself? Tears, folks. Absolute tears. Each actor brought something unique, and that's part of why Bond's lasted so long. He adapts. He reflects the times. But now, with Craig bowing out, we're at a crossroads, and the latest news is shaking things up even more. Okay, let's talk about the big news that's got Bond fans buzzing in 2025. Amazon MGM Studios has officially taken creative control of the James Bond franchise. For decades, the Broccoli family, first Cubby, then Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli, ran the show through Eon Productions. They were the gatekeepers, keeping Bond's legacy intact. But now, Amazon's in the driver's seat, and that's a seismic shift. Why does this matter? Well, Amazon isn't just a studio. They're a streaming giant with a track record of bold moves. Think The Rings of Power or The Boys? They don't play it safe. Reports say they're eyeing a Bond resurgence, with the next film tentatively called Bond 26, aiming for a 2028 release. That's still a few years off, but these movies take time. Script, director, casting, the works. What's their plan? Word on the street, or at least from industry insiders, is that Amazon wants to modernize Bond. Maybe a lighter tone, more humor, a nod back to the Roger Moore days, or maybe they'll lean into high-tech espionage to match today's world of drones and AI. But here's the kicker. They've got to balance that with what fans expect. Gadgets, glamour, and a Bond who's still, well, Bond. And then there's the million-dollar question. Who's the next 007? Ever since Craig hung up the Walther PPK, the rumor mill's been in overdrive. Idris Elba? Too old now, he said it himself. Tom Hardy? Maybe, but he's got a packed schedule. Henry Cavill? He's got the look, but some say he's too obvious. There's even buzz about newcomers like Aaron Taylor-Johnson or Regé-Jean Page. With Amazon calling the shots, they might surprise us with someone totally unexpected. Amazon's also hinting at expanding the Bond universe. Think spin-offs about MQ, or even a villain like Blofeld. Imagine a series on a young M building MI6, or Q tinkering with gadgets in his lab. It's risky, but if anyone's got the resources to pull it off, it's Amazon. Still, the focus right now is on Bond 26, and fans are watching every move. But let's zoom out for a sec. Why are we still obsessed with James Bond? It's not just the movies, it's what he represents. Bond's fingerprints are all over pop culture. Those sharp suits, the Aston Martin DB5, the shaken, not stirred line, they're icons. He's influenced everything from fashion to car design to how we imagine spies. Think about it. Without Bond, would we have Mission Impossible's Ethan Hunt doing insane stunts? Or Kingsman's stylish spies? Even video games like GoldenEye 007 on the N64 owe a debt to 007. And the music. That Bond theme is instantly recognizable. And the title songs. Shirley Bassey's Goldfinger, Paul McCartney's Live and Let Die, Billie Eilish's No Time to Die. They're classics in their own right. But it's deeper than that. Bond's a fantasy, a guy who can jet off to Monaco, outsmart a genius villain, and still look good doing it. Yet he's evolved with us. In the 60s, he was Cold War cool, fighting Soviets. In the 90s, he tackled media moguls and terrorists. Craig's Bond gave us a hero who's flawed, human, someone who feels the weight of the job. That mix of escapism and relatability, that's the secret sauce. Now, Bond hasn't always had a smooth ride. In recent years, there's been a lot of debate about his place in today's world. Some say he's a relic, too macho, too colonial, too stuck in a 20th century mindset. The womanizing, the casual violence, It doesn't always sit right in 2025. There's been talk about shaking things up big time. A female Bond? A Bond of color? Barbara Broccoli's been firm. Bond's a man. End of story. But that hasn't stopped the conversation. Could he be less of a playboy? More of a partner? We've already seen steps that way. Lashana Lynch's Nomi in No Time to Die was a badass 00 agent who didn't just swoon for Bond. She held her own. I think Bond can evolve without losing his core. Craig proved that. Give him depth, make him real, but keep the swagger. Amazon's got a chance here to thread the needle, modernize the franchise, bring in new voices, but don't ditch what makes 07 special. It's a tightrope, but if anyone can walk it, they can. So, where does Bond go from here? Bond 26 is the next big milestone, and with Amazon's deep pockets, it could be a spectacle. Will it lean into humor? Go dark again? Introduce a new kind of villain, maybe a tech billionaire or a climate crisis.
Mastermind? The possibilities are endless. And while we wait, we've got 25 films to revisit. Connery's classics, Moore's wild rides, Craig's emotional punches. There's a Bond for every mood. The franchise has survived legal battles, changing tastes, and even a global pandemic with No Time to Die's delays. It's not just a series, it's a survivor. James Bond is more than a spy. He's a legend. For over 60 years, he's been our guide through danger and dazzle, a constant in a changing world. Amazon's takeover might be the start of a new chapter, but one thing's for sure. 07 will return. And when he does, we'll be here, ready for the next adventure. Thanks for joining me on this epic dive into the world of Bond. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss what's next. Tell me in the comments, who's your favorite Bond? Who should take over? Let's get that debate going, and we'll see you in the next video.